All right, so I'm going to start by solving this equation, and the first thing I'm going to do is draw my line straight down top to bottom. The second thing I'm going to do is something new. I showed a couple of you this yesterday. I'm going to take this box and I'm going to cover up the number and the variable, and I still have this plus 5 there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that plus 5 by doing the opposite on each side. Okay, so I'm going to come to my calculator and do 12.4 minus 5. And that gives me 7.4 on this side. And of course, these make 0. So when I move this box, that's what we have to work with next. So let's move the 4x. Oops, sorry about that. Let me get a pen back. Let's move the 4x down here. Then 4 times x, how do I undo multiplication? By division. So I'm going to put that in my calculator. I'm going to go to my next line, and I'm going to use this A and S button. It brings my answer down. Then I'm going to divide by 4, and that means x is 1.85. Now, this is what I'm going to do, though. I'm going to make sure that I am correct. I'm going to start by typing in the side of the equation with the variable, 4x plus 5. I'm going to go to my next line, and I'm going to type in the answer. X equals 1.85, and my answer is 12.4, which is right here. So that means that my answer is correct. So let's go ahead, and we're going to go to the next slide and see if we can solve that one. All right, so here we go. We have something that I'm going to go ahead and cover up again. So I'm going to grab my square, and I'm going to make sure it's red, and I'm going to come out here and draw it. All right, and then I'm going to move it over here. So I'm going to cover up this, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my line top to bottom. I have a negative 12 there, so I'm going to get rid of that first. Okay, so 12 plus 3 is 15. Always use Desmos. You always want to use Desmos. And then I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to move that square away because we still have more to the problem. And I'm going to drop down that x divided by 5. So here's x divided by 5 equals 15. Now I have to ask myself, what is the opposite of division? Well, the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply by this 5 on both sides. That cancels. My x comes down. And then I'm going to come to this side, and I'm going to multiply 15 times 5. And that is 75. Now, I want to make sure that I am right. So I'm going to I'm going to type in my equation, x divided by 5 minus 12. I'm going to go to my next line, and I'm going to type in my answer, x equals 75. I got a 3. Here is a 3. That means my answer is correct. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next one. All right, this one is a little bit backwards. I'm going to go ahead and keep doing what I'm doing because I think that the square really does help, and I'll explain more in a minute. So I'm going to move this square. I know this equation looks backwards, but I'm going to cover up everything that is attached to the variable. So I'm going to cover that up. All right, and now I'm going to start to solve. I'm going to say, all right, this 5 is a positive 5, and I've got to move it to the other side of that line. So I'm going to subtract 5 from each side. Remember, there's no sign in front of it, so it's positive. So I'm going to come over here, show you why I use Desmos. Negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12. Now I'm going to move this box. All right, so I'm going to drop down what I have left to work with. Let me make sure I've got my pen back. Hold on one second. right. I'm going to drop down the negative 3x that I have left over there. And I ask myself, this is negative 3 times x. How do I undo multiplication? Well, I have to divide. And I have to divide by everything that's attached to that variable. So I'm dividing by negative 3. So let's come back over here to my calculator again. Negative 12 divided by negative 3 gives us 4. Okay, so let me come back and I'm going to make sure that I type everything in my calculator correctly. Type in the side that has the variable. So we're going to type in 5 minus 3x. Then I'm going to flip my answer around and I'm going to type x equals 4. That gives me negative 7, which is the same thing it gave me here, which means we solved this correctly. Okay, and we've got another one. This is one of those tricky ones that we talked about where the prince was over here and he was trying to save the princess up in the tower. Well, the way you do this is you look at the problem and you say, all right, we've got to get rid of this 3. Okay, first of all, we have to get rid of the 3. So I always put the numerator in parentheses. Then if that's a 3, I multiply each side by 3, whatever number is on the bottom. That cancels out, and the x plus 4 drops down. And then the negative 5 times 3, I'm going to put that in my calculator. And I get a negative 15. Okay, so I'm going to use the same trick that I was using before on the other ones. I'm going to draw myself a square. And I'm going to cover up the variable and everything with it. Well, it's not really covered up, but we're not looking at that. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to, that's a plus 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 from each side. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my calculator and do negative 15 minus 4, which gives me negative 19. Then I'm going to get rid of my square there. And all I have left to bring down is an x. So let me go ahead and get my pen so I can do that. So x equals negative 19. So again, let's make sure that's right. We have to put this side in the calculator. The best way to do it is to use the A divided by B button. Click it. Put x plus 4 on top. Then go ahead and put the 3 in the denominator on bottom. Then we go to our next line and we type in x equals negative 19. And that gives us a negative 5, which is exactly what we had here. And that means we did it correctly. Okay? So as long as you're able to solve all of the equations that look like the ones I just showed you, you're going to do great on this test. All right?